Hey guys, welcome to today's topic. We're going to be talking about how to track food, specifically using macros. Okay, so this is going to be a very useful tutorial for some of you guys who maybe you've never tracked your food before. You don't know what that means and what that's supposed to look like, what that entails. If that sounds like you and you have never done anything remotely like this, then this is going to be a very useful video for you. Okay, I am just going to start off by explaining a little bit about why we have to track our foods and why we do this. Okay, so for a lot of clients who come to me first, they basically have not really any much understanding of food. And I would say that, I think this is something that, hasn't really been taught to us. I mean, when we go to school, we learn different subjects, home education, maybe in secondary school, but we have never really been taught how to eat. Um, Granted, there's like the health pyramids and all those different things. You know what are healthier options. I mean, people assume that they're eating healthy, but the problem with this is you don't know firstly how much you actually are consuming on a whole, and if you don't know the total number, it's very difficult for you to make any changes. And because calories are king when it comes to making changes in your body composition, be it losing fat and gaining muscle, having a very clear picture of how much you are eating and knowing how to change the numbers accordingly to fit your goals and will help you move in the correct direction. If not, you are just going to be spinning your wheels, trying to eat healthier and healthier, and that's just not going to cut it because you're just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and hoping it sticks. But if you actually know how much you are consuming, the total number, um, it's basically the idea that you what you don't measure, you can't manage, right? This goes for everything. It goes for training. If you're not measuring and you don't know how much you are squatting now, right now, um, how are you going to know, whether 6 months down the road you've made progress? The same way with food. If you don't have any scale when it comes to um, basically knowing how much you're eating and having a plan as to how to change that. I plan to cover that in next few sort of videos. But if you don't know how much you are consuming and you don't know how to change these numbers, it's going to be very difficult for you and you're going to feel that you're dieting your entire life. Okay, but that's not the plan. For most people, it shouldn't be the plan. The plan shouldn't be to diet 24/7, 365 days a year for years on end. There should be some structure, some periodization in place around it. Okay, so yes, back to today's topic. We are talking about tracking foods, specifically tracking your macros. Okay, so let me explain that a little bit first. Okay, so firstly, there are two things you need to know. Okay, firstly is calories, which are basically how much, sort of stored energy is within your food, right? Um, to break calories down even further. So I mean, if you have looked at like the back of your any packet of food or even in restaurants, there's sometimes posts like how much you are consuming based on like maybe like how much this burger is, how many calories that is. It's something that gets thrown around very frequently. The next step after calories is to know how many calories actually came from three different macronutrients. So specifically, proteins, carbs, and fats. So those are the three major and only macronutrients that you need to know. And these are the three fundamental macronutrients. And I will again probably go into another um, video another day to actually explain why each one is important and what role it plays. Okay, but and maybe even how to prescribe your own macros. I can do that in another video. But for today, just very simply, why we are tracking and how do we do it. Okay, so again, to reiterate, the reason we are tracking is because if you don't track, it's hard to make changes. And if it's hard to make changes, you're just guessing and throwing things at the wall and hoping it sticks. But if you want a diet plan, if you want a plan with some structure to it, then you need to know where you're at and you need to be able to track it to see whether or not you're off your goal or or your birth or whatever, and that will explain any fluctuations in weight, in body changes, and all of that. Okay, so the same way, I mean, the same kind of idea comes when we are um, trying to save money, right? Like, I mean, if we don't have a budget, basically that calorie goal serves as that budget, okay? And if we don't have that budget, how will we know whether or not we overshot it or whether or not we're actually saving money that month? We wouldn't know. So the same way with tracking calories and with tracking your macros, okay? So macros itself, there's protein, carbs, and fats. Each gram of protein is 4 calories, and each gram of carb is 4 calories, and each gram of fat is 9 calories. Okay, so 449 proteins, carbs, fats. When you look at a particular food, right, there are, I mean, you can take anything now, okay? Say example, this like yogurt I'm having right now. It is just timely that I had it here. It is 188 calories, 5.6 grams of protein, 9.5 grams of fat, and 20 grams of carbs. So any particular food that you are consuming likely has a breakdown into proteins, carbs, fats. Unless it is something that is predominantly protein. So for example, if you're picking up a chicken breast, it likely has a lot of protein in it, a little bit of fat, and likely no carbs. Okay. The same way if you're looking at like rice, it also has all three. So for example, like brown rice maybe has the most carb, has some protein, and has pretty little fat. Okay, so that's something to note, because I mean, it is not as simple as just assuming that because it is chicken, it is just protein. That basically it can be broken down even further into these three macronutrients if you look at the nutritional information for that particular food. Okay, so that's important. Okay, so very simple. Today I want to go through what you actually need to track and how to actually track. So there are two things you need to track. The first thing would be a digital food scale, so something like this, okay? So this is what I have. You press power, it comes on, and then it will show you basically 0, and then you can change the unit of measurement. So you have it in grams, and then you can put the food on it and weigh it, right? Okay, so digital food scale, very important. Don't get those with the springs and the old school type. Is very inaccurate. And here you can weigh until the decimal place, so it's pretty accurate. That's the first thing. Second thing you would need is your phone for MyFitnessPal. So basically, MyFitnessPal, this app, okay? This is where we're going to log all of our food, and it's going to throw out numbers that we are going to use. So I'll explain that in a bit. So basically, for a start, two things: digital food scale and a free tracking app, which you can just download on App Store. Android or Apple is fine, has both. Okay. A few things to note when it comes to tracking on MyFitnessPal itself. When you log on to MyFitnessPal, you key in your height, your weight, your goal. They might even ask you how much you want to lose, how much you want to gain. They will spit out a calorie goal for you. If you are working with your coach, that's not something you should care about. You should ignore the goals that are set there, the default goals. Firstly, it doesn't take into account your training. It doesn't take into account your lifestyle. It doesn't take into account very specific details about you, which is what coaching does. Okay, I mean, you can try to work off those numbers, but I mean, if you are working with your coach, I would say utilize your coach. Ask your coach. Your coach should be giving you numbers to work with that are specific for you and for your own goal and for your circumstance. Okay. They might also even give you like a protein, carb, and fat goal. Again, just ignore that. And yeah, I will. I mean, if you want to think about setting these numbers yourself, I can dive into that in another video. But for today, we're just going to go on the assumption that you have those numbers, given to you by your coach, or you know how to work those numbers out yourself. Okay. So a couple of things when it comes to tracking food. Firstly, there are a couple of things that we need to know. So the first thing is calorie and macronutrient content of that particular food. The second thing would be serving size. And the third thing would be how many servings you plan to consume. Okay, so because we need to know how, like calorie dense, or basically how much calories that food contains, we need to understand how many calories and what's the macronutrient content of that food. Okay, to rewind a little bit, some people may just track calories. Some people want to take it a step further and track your macros. If you are tracking your macros, your protein, carbs, and fats breakdown, you technically are already tracking your calories, because calories is comprises of protein, carbs, and fats, correct? So calorie is, I would say, the most important thing when it comes to managing body composition. I mean, managing your weight. Okay, so as long as you want to lose weight, if you're eating in a deficit, you're going to lose weight. But macros is important for you if you want to optimize your body composition. So if you want to focus on gaining lean muscle and shedding fat, then you should be concerned about your macros breakdown. Okay, so yeah, so the three things you need to know: how much calories and macros are contained in that food, what is the serving size that you are consuming, and how many servings do you eat. To make things simple, if you are doing things at home, which I will get to later as well, I like to just, the honestly, the box doesn't know the serving size that fits you and your goals. And this is the whole point of if it fits your macros, right? Is that it can give you that flexibility to be able to look at your macro goals, look at your calorie goals, and be able to determine for yourself what you need and how much you need. So honestly, I wouldn't even really care about the serving size that is mentioned on the box or on that food label. Eat what you need to based on your goals, and as long as you are staying within your calorie or your macro goals, you're good. So it doesn't matter, honestly. Um, yes. So now I want to go into the 5 different scenarios that could arise when you are trying to track your food. So it really depends on the information that you have, and basically the information that you have at your disposal determines the different methods that you use to track different foods. Okay, so the first scenario would be when you have the nutritional facts labeled and also it's been pre-portioned for you. So an example of that would be sliced bread. Okay, so if you look at that packet of sliced bread, if you flip it around, you look at nutritional information, it tells you one serving size is one slice of bread, for example. In one slice of bread, there is this much protein, this much carbs, this much fats, and it constitutes this much calories, right? That's simple. And when you want to input all of this, and say you ate one slice of bread, when you want to input this into MyFitnessPal to track how much you are consuming in that day, it's very simple. 3 things that you could possibly use to key that into MyFitnessPal. The first thing is you could scan the barcode. So this is not a sliced bread packet that I have here, but I'm just going to roll this. It's a pancake mix. Basically, there is a barcode at the bottom. You're just going to scan that with MyFitnessPal, and it's going to open up the nutritional information of this particular food item, and then you can just double check, is it the exact same thing that is there on that packet and on MyFitnessPal, just to make sure. Okay, that's the first item. That's the first way. Okay, the second way is to search for the food. So you could go on MyFitnessPal, search gardenia whole grain bread. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so it could come up, and then you just select it, and then obviously have a check whether or not it's the same as the one that's on your packet. And if it is, great. The third option is to create a custom food, and that's if you're looking at the nutrition information of the packet that you're holding and you can see very clearly, this is it, I'm going to key it in and I'm going to create my own food item. Depending if you can't search for it or the information is wrong, then you want to do it this way. But this is usually the easiest way. The first scenario, when the nutritional facts are given to you, and as well it's been pre-portioned for you, it's very straightforward. There's no reason you should be getting anything wrong. Okay, the second scenario is when the nutritional facts have been labeled, but it's not pre-portioned for you. So think of cereal, for example. You have a big packet of cereal, or even like this pancake mix. Okay, and this is when the food scale comes in handy. Okay, you would need the food scale, and a couple of suggestions here. When it comes to the food scale, what I like to do, um, and what busy people like to do, is they would take the food scale, they would grab, like, for example, a bowl, put it on the food scale, and before you even hit start, the bowl is already on the food scale. Then you hit start. It basically will bring it to zero, and then whatever you throw on that bowl or into that bowl will get weighed, right? It doesn't count the weight of that bowl, because obviously we don't want to count bowls and utensils. We're not going to eat them, right? So that's just a simple hack for you. When you are adding items, for example, if you want to add items, multiple items into that same bowl, maybe I'm making this pancake, right? I want to add, like, firstly, I'll add the pancake mix, and then I will click tare, which basically just zeroizes the scale, brings it back down to zero, and then I'll add the next item, so butter or whatever. Um, and then I have maybe butter is like 5 grams. So it's very clear. I don't need to do any like mental math in my head and confuse myself and get numbers wrong and just screw up everything. So it's very simple. Okay, so that's a second approach. Get the food scale, and yeah, and also one more thing, when you are putting you know or when you are taking items from like packages, right? Usually it refers to items that are uncooked, so or raw. Okay, so or meaning just uncooked, like in its present state. So for example, if I'm putting on rice, for example, if you could do it two options, you could do the cooked or uncooked route. If you're doing the uncooked route, um, that number that I'm putting down there based on what's on the back of the rice sack, right, refers to how much calories and macros are contained in that particular food when it's uncooked. When it's cooked, the weight changes. It absorbs water. So that number doesn't exactly tally with how much it actually, how many calories actually equates to, like that. It doesn't equate. Okay, so always remember that it refers to the current state that it's in. um in MyFitnessPal, don't worry about that. You'll be able to search for cooked and uncooked items. I suggest always sticking to the same approach. So if you like to cook everything in bulk, you could just weigh it out after, and just make sure you search, like, Thai brown rice cooked, and then you will key in that weight, because that will already account for the water weight. Okay. Yeah, but generally the most accurate is if everything is keyed in when it's uncooked. That's usually the most accurate approach. Yeah, but I would say don't worry, don't stress about all these small details. As long as you are consistent, and over time you will get into the hang of things, you would figure out what works and what doesn't work. And once you start to make a couple of mistakes by yourself, because it is necessary to learn. Once you start to do that a bit, you will figure out, and you'll find what works best for you. I personally like to do the cooked route because everything's already prepared, and yeah, that's just easier for me. But if you are meal prepping, for example, and you have everything uncooked first, then you could go that route as well. So it really depends what works for your situation. Okay, so if I'm talking about that packet of cereal, right? After you have weighed out, how heavy that is, um, it goes back to the first item. Just scan, search the food, or create the food. Okay, so that's your three staples. Okay, as for scenario number three, we're gonna move on. When you don't have the nutritional facts label and it's not pre-portioned for you. So think of your apple, your fruits, that sort of thing. Here there's two options. Okay, so first thing would be to search a nutritional database, and I will link a couple of nutritional database below so that you can have a look through that. Those are probably the more accurate databases that are out there. The alternative is, okay, so if you do that nutritional database approach, you need to eventually create a custom food. So search on the database, whatever gets thrown out, absorb, extract those numbers, proteins, carbs, fats. I like to include dietary fiber as well, and put that in and create your own food in MyFitnessPal. If it's going to be something you're going to be consuming on a regular then it's worth it to create another food item because yeah, MyFitnessPal is also a user maintained or user created database. So everybody keys in their own information. Sometimes it can be, off a little bit. It's best. Sometimes it's best to create your own entry. Okay. So the other alternative for the apple for that fruit is if you were to search on MyFitnessPal, and here you want to be as specific as possible. Okay. So for example, I would search apple raw with skin. I like throwing the word or the term USDA, which is basically your US Dietary Association, and they usually have pretty accurate numbers. So that's like a little hack for you as well. Yeah, so that is your third scenario. Okay, if when you don't have the nutritional facts and it's not pre-portioned for you, you could search on a nutritional database, or you could search directly on MyFitnessPal. And always try to use your like common sense and nutritional knowledge. I mean, your nutritional knowledge maybe is pretty low right now, but as you start to track your foods, you should become more aware, gain a better understanding of calories, of food volume, of calorie density, satiation, all these different things, which is the point of tracking as well, to be able to, make a clear decision when it comes to looking at the food on MyFitnessPal and determining whether or not it's accurate or not. Because honestly, sometimes a lot of it there is inaccurate. And if you are not like taking time to actually look at what you're selecting and entering into your food journal, your numbers can be very off at the end of the day. So for example, like the other day, like um I was eating like I can't remember what specifically I was eating, but I'll just give you an example. For example, I was eating like I don't know, like French fries, okay, whatever. Like and if I searched it there, the numbers came out as like predominantly like protein, like no carbs, like not much fat. It's like that's a joke, right? It can't be no carbs, no fat. It is should be high fats, like moderate some amount of carbs, like and almost little protein. But the numbers are all skewed. So just be mindful. It is again a user created database and user maintained database. And you got to use some like common sense and some like of your own nutritional knowledge when you are looking at that information there and adding that into your food journal, because that's numbers that are going to skew your total calorie number, and whether or not your coach makes a good decision at the end of the day is based on that. Okay. The fourth scenario is when, and the fourth and the fifth are when it's basically the food's been prepared out of your control, meaning you didn't cook it, and maybe you bought it, for example, outside, or you had it outside. Okay. The fourth one is when it's prepared out of your control, but it's prepared by a well-known source. So think something like Subway or McDonald's or something like that. Okay. Honestly, whenever it comes to eating out, the numbers are always just going to be an estimation. So that's something we need to accept. And there's two ways you can do this when it comes from a well-known source. Okay. The first thing you could do is check the information provided by the restaurant. So sometimes restaurants, have their websites, and then they'll put the menu, they put down. An example of this is also Daily Cut, or all those like salad shops, yeah, in CBD. They have a lot of or they're quite like they cater to a very like health savvy crowd, right? So all of the nutritional information are all on the website. So if you search, you definitely be able to find for different items in your menu, what is the calorie breakdown, what is the macros for that specific item. And if you choose sauce, you don't choose sauce, whatever, it's all there. Okay, so you can easily key that in when you search for that on the website. If you don't manage to search it on the website, you could also look sometimes on MyFitnessPal itself. For example, if you search Subway tuna sandwich, whole grain bread, 6-inch, whatever, 6 foot, 6-inch, 6 foot, yeah, okay. It could come up, and then because Subway has already keyed in all of their food entries there. I mean, again, think about it, it's not accurate, not really accurate, because I mean, how someone's feeling that day, how much mayo he puts on your sandwich versus the next guy, how much like I don't know, chicken he puts in your sandwich. They don't exactly weigh it out. They don't really care. As in, they're not really there to make sure that you hit your calorie goals and your macro goals, right? That's your problem, and they basically just want to get their job done. So, I mean, it's better than nothing. It's an estimation, but I rather have an estimation than nothing at all. And I rather key something in to my fitness pal than key nothing at all. Okay, so the fifth scenario, okay, will be when it's prepared outside of your control, and by a not so well known source. So think like your local zi char restaurant, or you go to like someone's house and they cook something for you. So how on earth will you be able to figure out what was inside that bowl that she handed you? Honestly, again, it's going to be an estimation, and that's, I mean, the trade-off that you are going to take when you eat out. But at the same time, do your best, try to key something in. As you get more familiar with this, as you start to track more, you will definitely get the hang of things. You'll be better at estimating. And I mean, if majority of your meals are eaten at home, say 80 to 90% of your meals are at home, um, I mean, honestly, if I look at the chicken breast now, I can roughly tell, and this is something that I like to try by myself. Okay, I like to practice this. I like to practice guessing by myself, and play this game with myself, so that when I actually have to go out, I will know in my head roughly how heavy that chicken breast is going to be. It's going to be like about 150 grams. I can gauge, because I'm already practicing on a daily basis. So what that means is, like, on a daily basis, when I go to put food on my plate, I will not just put it on my plate and then just key it mindlessly into my fitness pal. I will play this game where I will try to figure out, okay, I think that's roughly about 70 grams. Let's see whether I'm correct. And then I'll just check, say, oh, okay, 75 grams, I'm more or less there. And then as you start to do this more, you fine tune your ability to be able to guesstimate and gauge, and you become more accurate. So yeah, that's definitely something that comes with practice and comes with just with time. Okay. um so that's basically it. I guess for the last point, something I would just want to stress is that, and just this applies to everything, right? When you are eating meals that constitute of different items, you will need to key the individual item in separately. So for example, if you're having a chicken breast with steamed carrots and a baked potato, uh, barbecue sauce, I don't know, something like that. You need to key each and every item separately into MyFitnessPal, and then it will throw out the number for you, the total number of calories and macros for the day. Okay, so I think that more or less covers the five scenarios. I just have other key items that I have written down that I want to go through with you guys, um, to give you a bit more understanding when it comes to tracking foods, and just things to note. Um, the first thing is that it's important to not just aim for perfection. I mean, everybody wants to be perfect. I want to be perfect, but we can't be perfect. So the most important thing is consistency, and consistency over time. Okay, especially when it comes to like food prepared outside of our control. Use the level of knowledge of food that you have at that moment, at that point in time, and to make the best possible estimation, and still log, because, like, I mean, you need to log to keep yourself accountable, and it is better to have log. Even if you're 50% accurate, it's better to get that in than to miss the number completely. Okay, because then your number is going to be way off, but at least you are maybe like 50% of dinner off. It's not as bad than being 100% of dinner off. Okay. Yeah. The second item is that MyFitnessPal is a user-created database. So I've already said that multiple times in this video, but yes, it's a user-created database. But um, the macros that are there are usually accurate, if you do the sense check. Okay. The calorie number that they give you is usually off, which is why for my clients, I have like a dedicated like metric tracker for them to key in, how much proteins, carbs, and fats, and then it will spit out the calorie number, and we look at that on a weekly basis because that's how I make decisions, not just based on individual numbers. And yeah, because the number actually, if you do your own math, right, and you look at the number that they give you on MyFitnessPal, the calorie number is usually off. Food companies can round up or down their total calorie numbers. They can exclude things like, I think, like sugars and like dietary fiber, which sometimes may impact the numbers. So they're allowed to do that, and that sometimes skews the numbers. So what I get my clients to do is just focus on extracting the protein, carbs, fats number from MyFitnessPal and throwing that into my metric tracker, and then that's where we will look at the calorie and macro goal more specifically. Okay. Next is that some of the foods in MyFitnessPal have a green check mark next to it. Okay, so what this means is that MyFitnessPal thinks that the information is correct and is accurate, but this may not be the case and may not be guaranteed, but it is likely more accurate than the rest of the items that are not marked green. So it's just a point to note. It's not foolproof, but it's probably better than the ones like the rest of it. Again, I mentioned the USDA trick. So if that's something that you are keying it in yourself, you're keying like an apple or whatever it is, use that term USDA, search Apple USDA, and it will likely throw out something more accurate. So another point that just came to mind is that sometimes people think like tracking things like fruit and vegetables is a little bit obsessive. I sometimes think, I need not track vegetables. I don't really care. It doesn't really, contribute much calories to my total goal, basically. But what I would say is that, again, you don't need to stress so much over it because vegetables are good for you. They're not going to add a lot to anything. Maybe at most a little bit of like carbs. But the thing that vegetables are important for you to track is because they contribute like fiber and like fruit as well, fiber and carbs, right? And this is important because, I mean, if your coach is looking at things like, how many times you go to the toilet, whether or not you have good digestion, and all those kind of factors, then that's going to be important for them to know how much fiber you're actually getting on a daily basis and whether or not it's enough. Okay. Next item is that, yes, so verify the nutrition information even when scanning, because again, like I mentioned, sometimes numbers can be way off, and like, I mean, anybody looking at them will be like no way that that number is correct. So just do that sense check and don't assume that everything is correct, okay? Because it's really not. Next, um, yeah, okay, so actually done, okay, because the rest of the things I have mentioned, I already said. Um, if you're completely new to this, don't freak out. Um, even when I first started tracking calories, I was at a restaurant with a friend and he had experience tracking and I had no experience and I was like so flustered. It's like I can't do this, I can't track, it's too much for me. Like I don't know where to start. And I remember he just broke it down very simply, just like it's okay, just try and just try. And then once I started to like, okay, I keyed in smoked salmon, brioche, whatever. Like I got most of my items in the plate down. Honestly, the first time was a bit daunting. The very first meal I keyed in. As I got the hang of it, as I got my own weighing scale as well, and tried to do things by myself at home, tested it out, just like told myself, it's okay, you're gonna just stick to this thing, even if it's uncomfortable for the first week or so. Like honestly, I really surprised myself, and within like honestly less than a week. Like I would say that for most people, it would take you about 2 weeks to get comfortable. But for me, it was really quick. Like within 2 weeks, the first part was within 1 week. But the first part was really uncomfortable because I was just like, this is new to me. I really don't know what I'm doing. Like, how do I know if I'm getting this right? So that's fine. It's completely normal. Just deal with it and push through that discomfort. You will definitely get better at it and you'll learn now after you make a couple of mistakes. I made my own mistakes to be able to learn and be more comfortable to be able to teach you nowadays. So don't worry about it. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you. Okay. And just a couple of last points is that my or tracking, right, is not necessarily a tool that you need to use forever. I mean, sometimes the reason people don't want to start is because they think like, oh gosh, like if I start now, I'm never gonna end, and then like, I need to track my food forever. This is obsessive. This is too much. Like, how am I gonna live my life? You know, like I can't go out to the restaurants anymore. Honestly, no, it is not. You don't have to view it that way. Think about it as um it gives you more freedom. Honestly, I know it sounds warped, but if you actually know how many calories you are consuming now and how much calories you have left for the day, it is almost freeing because you know like how much you can eat still and still hit your goals, you know. Like this is like particularly key for people whose hunger cues are sort of off track already and like just not in sync with their body. If that's the case, right, like it is pertinent that you track. Like I have tons of clients, right, that come to me at first and they are eating way below what is required for them to sustain. But because they have, you know, eaten so little, their body has basically down regulated their metabolism to a level that is just low. And they are now like after working with me, I have like reverse the term is reverse dieted. I can go into that in another video, but basically I've brought their calories back up to a level that is, I mean, they can actually eat food again, you know, because some people go into like chronic diets, they just like restrict, then their body just down regulates, you know, and then they just wonder, how come I can't, you know, lose weight anymore? And I'm already eating so damn little. Like, it is frustrating and draining and doesn't make sense. You're going against the grain and against your own body and you're working against yourself. So, um, if that sounds like you, honestly, reach out for coaching. There's no other thing that's going to help you better and than someone actually guiding you through this process. Okay. So I've spoken a lot today about tracking food, importance of tracking macros, a couple of ways that you could look at tracking macros, and yeah, I just want to leave you with this last point, which is that I have like a MyFitnessPal guide, which I've created for my clients that if you are interested and if you want more information, I'll be happy to share that with you. Just drop me a direct message, drop me a message, and let me know you're interested in that guide, and I will shoot that over to you on email. So free, don't worry about it. Like I'm here to educate you, to give you value, so that you can, you know, make changes in your own life that's going to benefit you and that will teach you more about food, more about your body, and help you reach the goals that you're after and crush it. Okay. So if that sounds like you, feel free to reach out. Or if you just have any questions, feel free to reach out. Follow me as well on Instagram. So I am dfitzle, DFITZLE on Instagram. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. That's all I have for you today. I look forward to the next video where I'll share more on all things training, nutrition, and mindset. All right, see you guys soon.